Good morning. Welcome. We have a very special edition here at K4CO Radio. Thank you for tuning in. This morning we have Krista Juerling with Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. Good morning, Krista.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank
This
you.
is very, very special. So she is a counselor at Speakstone Counseling and Consulting and does a wide range. She covers counseling, trauma counseling, sports counseling, mental performance, and brain spotting. So we will cover all of those as we continue. Tell us a little bit about Speakstone, how it formed, and how you got into the business.
Yeah, so I was a coach and a personal trainer before becoming a counselor. And I was working with all different kinds of athletes and working in a really cool gym, actually, that, working with other coaches working with like professional fighters or elite athletes in their sports. And I thought to myself, like, I want to be like the best coach, that there is. So I started going back to school for coaching exercise science. And as I started diving more into the world of coaching and training, I started getting more gravitating more towards the athlete as a person. And halfway through my master's, I was like, I think I want to go this way instead. So got my master's in counseling, and then started Speakstone right after. And so that kind of like took a turn from, the coaching, serving the athlete as like in that strength conditioning realm, and then getting to serve them as like in their personhood. So I started that last year, and it's been really, really fun, actually, just growing. And I have a heart for coaches, athletes, family members. It's a whole system for sure. So just kind of diving into that full on ever since. And yeah.
That is wonderful. Now, do these athletes and families and coaches, do they come to you for sessions? Do you go to them? What does kind of that process look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I do have an office. So we do, they come to me if they're doing it in person, or we could do it telehealth too, like online. I have done more of the coaching sessions, like on site. So I have gone out to where the athlete is training, and maybe if we're having like a mental block, maybe we're going to work through that and really kind of see it in the space as it's happening. So I would say most people come to the office or do online, but I have gone out, and I love doing that. I love going just to see, I think you get such a bigger picture of what's really going on. But yeah.
That is awesome. So are you the counselor on the sideline of like an NFL game, running up and down,
yes,
counseling these coaches, saying, we need to talk about this last call. How are you feeling right now?
Oh my God, that would be the dream, honestly. I would love that. Like, I think that would be amazing, especially, we could talk about this later, but like brain spotting, just let's do a quick, 20-minute
exactly.
in the halftime type thing. But no, I would love that. That would be so sweet.
I think that would be beneficial.
Yes.
Especially with our sports. You
sure.
See the coaches getting angry and, punching the sidelines, and you just think, quick timeout.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this for 10 seconds. So,
right.
It would
like
be a different world.
Yeah, let's get back into that, regulated state, right? Like at that
Yes.
point, when we're like that angry, the part of our brain that's like making all the good logical choices, it's like gone offline. So, getting them regulated. I would love that. If you know someone that's looking for a sideline counselor,
I will put out some feelers.
Okay.
No promises, but
Okay.
that would be interesting.
That would be sweet. Yeah.
Yes. Are there certain sports that you focus on for coaches, or is it all over the board?
Yeah, so I work with all athletes and coaches, but I tend to have more clients in the MMA world, or jiu-jitsu, and then I work with basketball, baseball, football, gymnastics, cheer, dance, all of that. I'm like a little partial to MMA myself, but that's just because I love jujitsu. So, but yeah, like I work with everyone, and I do have another therapist in my practice, and he was a Division I baseball player. So I love sending any of our baseball clients to him because I think it just helps when you've had that like understanding. You can just say, I've been there. I know what you're going through. So.
Absolutely. I love that you were an athlete, and it sounds like your partner, of course, was too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed looking at your website. I've been an athlete truly since the beginning. I did dance all the way through high school.
Awesome.
I started lacrosse in 5th grade and played through college, and also was a coach.
Oh, that's awesome.
Back in 2007, 2008. So it is different, and I wanted to ask you this. As an athlete, because you were also an athlete and a coach, and now on the other side, being the counselor for these. So how does that translate through? Of course, you can relate, but I was curious the different mindset that you have and having that background.
Yeah, I think I always love to say, like, yes, I'm an athlete, but those that do, those I can't do, I'm an athlete because I love it, right? Like I do it because it brings me joy and fulfillment. I've never been an athlete that's like brought home all the trophies, but I think what gives me kind of a different edge is that I love coming alongside people that have that skill set, that are very competitive, they're just more naturally athletic, more, gravitate towards that competition and understand the process to get there and really what the sacrifices that it takes to get there, and be able to come alongside and say, I understand. Because I think we tend to, I'm trying to think of the word, like glorify or like, put athletes up on a pedestal.
Idolize them.
Idolize, thank you.
Right.
And say like, wow, that's so cool. And we don't really see the like blood, sweat, tears that go into it. And like the hard stuff that comes along with it and the culture and the, of all the individual sports. And, so just having that understanding, I'm never in this to be like, ooh, I work with athletes, I'm so cool. It's more of like coming from it of like, I get it. I know, I see it, especially being a coach gave me a lot more insight and just really seeing, you have an athlete who's training for a fight, but maybe they're dealing with stuff at home and it's like, they can't, they have to figure out how do I put this aside, because if I don't go fight, I'm not going to get paid. And if I don't get paid, then I owe my coaches a bunch of money. And I owe, it's, so you just get it. I think once you're in that world, you just see the things that are behind the scenes a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Hard to compartmentalize sometimes when you're trying to, be really on.
Right.
And perform. And you have all this other stuff going on. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and people are expecting you to, right?
Exactly.
It's not just you. Like for me, I can go to class and be like, I'm here for me, no one expects much. And, I'm just honest with that, but I do it for me. It's so fun and I love it. I don't have people relying on me to, win this or, it's a different kind of pressure.
For sure. Well, awesome. Well, we'll take a quick break here. When we come back, I do want to kind of delve into a little bit more kind of specifically with the different athletes, definitely brain spotting. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with that. And so I want to delve into that. Thank you again. This is K4CO Radio. This is a special edition with Krista Juerling, the owner of Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. We'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in for a special K4CO Radio. We have Krista Juerling with Speakstone Counseling and Consulting, been going over a little bit of the counseling that she has here in Colorado, specifically for coaches and athletes. Wanted to dive in a little bit more specifically with both the coaches and the athletes. I know you all have a wide range. You had mentioned jiu-jitsu, baseball, etc., quite a lot of sports. Do you see a trend, or maybe a better question is, what are you seeing that they're coming to you kind of specifically for, or is that also a wide range?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is also a wide range, but I think kind of more common, I think there's probably two that I see the most, like trauma or, depression, and then performance issues. So that's like three, but I kind of clumped the trauma and depression together. So those kind of tend to stand out more. And then we do see a lot with performance issues. There's like performance anxiety, performance blocks, mental blocks, things like that. So it kind of depends on what brought them in, as far as like, are they seeking me out like themselves? Were they told by like maybe a coach, hey, I really want you to go talk to someone? They're kind of like, I'm fine, or
Gotcha.
or maybe they're saying like, hey, I am dealing with this. I've dealt with this a lot in the past, and it's kind of popping up again. So it does kind of vary, really. But those are my specialties, would be the trauma, depression, and performance issues. So, my other therapist that's in the office, he does do a lot more anxiety work and stuff like that. But yeah, we see a lot of that.
Okay. Do you see a difference between someone who's not a coach and an athlete coming in for depression or anxiety versus someone who's kind of shoved more in the spotlight that has maybe a higher pressure job per se?
Yeah, I think with high performers, right? So
Right.
even like you said, a job, right? It doesn't have to be an athlete or coach. I think they're really good at like compartmentalizing, disassociating from their body or events that happen. Just kind of being able to put it separate, which is a great coping skill. That I never want to take away someone's coping skills, right? But a lot of the time when they're coming to me, it's because their coping skills no longer working for them, and maybe they don't need to like use it anymore, right? So maybe there was a traumatic event or something, and the coping skill that innately they developed was to just compartmentalize it and just kind of disassociate from the body. But now maybe something is triggering that, and they're feeling things and they don't really know what to do, or I even going to the athletics, like an injury, right? Like ACL tear, and so just kind of avoiding things that would get them injured again or something like that. But then it's kind of unavoidable. At the same time, you're going to plant your foot, if say you're playing soccer, so just getting re-triggered in those moments. So the coping skill that they've developed just isn't working.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you brought up coping skills. Mm-hmm. This is something that I've worked on for the majority of my life. And I have a son who's 5 years old, and we work on that all the time with especially breathing techniques.
Yeah.
I call it the hand technique, where you go in and out, up and down, and it kind of regulates your breath to help with that. I am curious, in your practice, I know that a lot of times they are talking back and forth with the person. Do you have other techniques that you bring in for coping skills?
Yeah, so I do brain spotting. That's my specialty. And with brain spotting, it's not talk therapy. I am actually, as a therapist, or I do it in mental performance coaching as well. It's there's obviously differences, but I'm quiet. I'm sitting there holding the space. It's kind of like if you have a filing cabinet. I'm the one that's like opening the door and keeping the door open while we're letting your brain just pull whatever files it needs to pull. Okay. So with brain spotting, it's a great way to tap into that limbic system. So a good example would be, say we'll just keep using the ACL I guess. Okay. Say you tore your ACL playing soccer. If you go and you know, every time you think about it or you are in a similar situation, you just kind of start to feel really anxious, or you feel like sick to your stomach, or, you know, something like that. Well, that's that trauma that's stored in the body, right? So with brain spotting, we're going to locate a spot with a pointer, or we can use, you know, puppets. It gets real fun. But we're going to locate a spot. We're going to process whatever needs to come out, like whatever your brain needs to think about, feel, whatever your body's going to feel. And then we're going to release it, and you're just going to kind of let it go. So it is really cool of a modality. I see people just having massive breakthroughs and kind of going from I don't even want to get on the field anymore to I don't even feel it when I think about that. Like I don't even feel anxious thinking about that injury, you know. Okay. So it is a really cool modality for sure.
Okay. And for those that don't, and this is pretty familiar, it's not familiar to me, the brain spotting. Mm-hmm. I just literally started reading about it last night thinking, boy, this is a new model. Do you actually do a physical scan, like an MRI type of thing? Or this is just looking at the person, figuring out where that is stored?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So with like something like neurofeedback, right? I think that's where you would do the scans. But with brain spotting, the premise is where you look affects how you feel. So we are constantly taking in information through our eyes, and we're storing that information in our body, right? So say you look, you know, to your right, and you're like, when I look over there, I just feel so anxious, or I just feel like a tightness in my chest. I don't really know why, right? But there's something that is stored in your body, in your midbrain, in your limbic system, that is associated with that spot that we're looking at. So we're going to stay there, and I'm going to let you I'm going to probably like prompt you to say, why don't you just let your, you know, brain go wherever it needs to. Notice your body. Notice how you're feeling, and just let your mind go, kind of. Let's see what comes up, you know. I've had people go from like a really traumatic event to their favorite ice cream. You know, it's just kind of like we're just pulling the files, and in a way we're just releasing it. We're processing it, you know, letting it go. So we might start on that ACL tear. We might have the pointer over here to the right or something, but your brain's probably going to go a lot of different ways, you know, and at the same time, we're checking in with the body too. Like, what are we noticing? How are we feeling? You know, that's going to vary based off what they say.
Of course. I find trauma work so amazing and very interesting. You know, I had a problem with a certain smell for a long time with lavender, and I had no idea where that stemmed from because it was stored so long ago until you start kind of peeling back all those layers to say, oh, this happened at this moment when I was, 3 years old. Right. So now that's stored. And then to go through the healing process with someone like you that's very educated, that's safe, and to, get through it. So thank you for doing all of this. It's very needed. And so I appreciate you sharing all of this with us. Yeah. We're going to take another quick break. We will be back. Again, we are with Krista with Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. We are with Krista. She is the owner of Speakstone Counseling and Consulting, based here locally in Centennial, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you again for being here. She has been going through the different counseling options that she offers, specifically trauma counseling with sports and coaches and mental performance. And we have been talking a little bit about brain spotting, which to me is fascinating. Thank you for telling our listeners about that. If you wouldn't mind to go in, I think more, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the trauma, anxiety, and depression, people are more familiar with the talking about it in the EMDR process. And as you had mentioned, sometimes the trauma that we experience as humans, we have no idea where it's coming from. You know, we can sometimes say it was a decade, or we disassociate, especially with something very traumatic. We go into survival mode. So if you wouldn't mind to explain kind of the differences between EMDR and brain spotting and the success that you've been having.
Yeah, so what we know about, trauma is that sometimes we can not remember all of it, right? Or even any of it. We can have gaps, we can have full unawareness of like a memory. And so what is great, I'm not an EMDR therapist, so I don't know a ton about it, but I know that it goes off like memories, like where you're going to use the memory. And so, but with brain spotting, what I do know is that we don't need to remember in order to process. So we can say, I think I was telling you like the example of the car, we can say, all I know is I was driving and then I woke up in the hospital, but I know an accident occurred. I just don't remember it because I, for whatever reason, lost consciousness, or maybe they didn't, but it was so traumatic, we kind of blocked it out to protect ourselves from that memory, whatever. So what we do is we really focus on when we think about that accident, what do you notice in your body as you're talking about, driving down the highway and then all of a sudden waking up in the hospital? What do you notice as you're starting to talk about that? And we can go off just that feeling. So if that person is like, oh, my hands are really sweaty, or I can't stop, moving around or something, then I'm just like 0 to 10. How sweaty are those hands right now? Like, how bad is it? And 10 being like, I need to go get a towel, 0 being like, oh, they're fine, and we can go off that and process that trauma or that experience based off what you're experiencing in your body. And we don't have to remember trauma or injuries or, experiences. We don't have to have the answers in order to be able to process and release it. So that's one of my biggest reasons why I was drawn to brain spotting in the first place. Because I think a lot of the time we, especially with athletes, like even in performance blocks, they're like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know why I'm plateauing, or I just can't break through. And we could talk through it, and we could come up with, mindfulness techniques. We could try to, do like narrative rewriting, the way they speak to themselves. We can like do all of that, but sometimes it's just really something that is stored in the body, and that's actually how brain spine was developed. His name's David Grand, and he was doing EMDR with the ice skater, and I'm gonna like mess up all the details, I'm sure, of this, but but he was doing EMDR with the ice skater. He started to notice that as he was moving, it was either a wand or whatever he was using across, that she was like kind of reacting, like blinking or flinching or something like that. So he just noticed, he's like, let me just slow this down and let's just see. And they ended up on one spot, and she ended up just starting processing about, her family, her parents, and things going on in her life. And ultimately then after that session was able to get the jump that she'd been working on with him in the first place. And I think that, that's where it's so funny, because we're looking everywhere all the time, right? We're taking in information all the time. And so to say like, well, how come, let's talk through this. Sometimes we don't even know why, so it's just noticing, what do you notice in your body? And then people that do have trauma and can't remember, sometimes they will remember, and the memory might come back and it might not. So we just try to normalize that it's okay if we don't ever remember. We just see what comes up, And I'm usually, it's called like the phrase is the tail of the comet. So as a therapist or the coach doing the brain spotting, I'm following your lead. I'm just here supporting you, holding the space for you, reminding you that you're safe. You're in a safe place. We're not, because if we have a flashback or something, and just I'm following what comes up. It's kind of a fun process.
Okay. It's very interesting to hold the wand. So this is the way I'm hearing this. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. So if you have a wand or a stick or something traveling, so it is stored in something that you saw or felt or experienced, and now it's got in your brain, and then went somewhere in your body that you were storing it. So is it where your eyes are focused at that moment that it can bring it up? Is that accurate with brain spotting?
Yeah. The best answer for that is it depends.
Okay. Good answer. I like that.
Yeah. It depends, right? Like sometimes it could be, that's the hardest part too, is that I think for me, I always want to know more. I'm like, tell me, and I'll dig deeper. And sometimes we just don't know, right? Like sometimes for some reason, maybe you had in the car accident glanced over to the left. That's the last thing you like, maybe, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that's true. Right. But it is whatever in that moment that you and I are talking about this, over here just feels yucky to look at. And so we go with it, I think there's room for more research in this. It's still fairly new in the whole realm of all the modalities that are out there. So I really am excited to see the future for brain spotting and what comes up for it. Yeah,
for sure. I do. I find this fascinating of if you can look at I have a red wall behind you. So does red trigger something? Right. Or for me, the smell of lavender, I'm never around it, or chocolate or vanilla, or, putting that, gosh, I lost the word. But that visual in front of you, or to trigger a certain sense. Do you ever put a certain color or a certain picture or photo in front of someone to see if that brings up something?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, because I've never been asked that, actually. And I've been on a few podcasts and I'm always like, it is so cool. I love that you asked that. Yes, so there are a lot of different ways to brain spot. When you're working with kids or youth athletes, you definitely have to get a little bit more creative, because they're not going to stare at a pole for 40 minutes and go into this whole process, So sometimes there's a brain spine therapist here in Colorado. Her name is Pi Fry, and she's phenomenal. And she worked with, I think she's she's not retired that I know of, but I think she's trying to or something. But she worked with kids, and that was actually something that she talked to me about was, with kids, have them draw a picture, have them draw 2 pictures, right? Hey, this is the picture of when I think about, I work with a lot of gymnasts, right? And they'll be it's so scary going backwards, but it used to not be scary going backwards. So I don't know why it's scary going backwards now, right? And so maybe we draw a picture of, them doing something backwards, or what makes them think of going backwards. And then we'll draw another picture of, what the opposite. So we'll call that a resource spot, where they feel grounded, where they feel calm, and kind of the complete opposite of their activation spot. And so maybe we'll hold up that picture kind of and notice where do we feel this as we're looking at that picture, and have our resource picture as well. Where do we feel the most grounded, the most calm, I think that works better with kids. You could do it in sand trays as well. My husband's a registered sand play practitioner, so we have a sand room. So it's super fun. So you could do that in the tray, like over here, where do you notice, like where do you notice it? So you can get really creative for sure, especially you probably should with kids or teens, because
For sure.
yeah,
Yes.
it gets a little different than
Of course, the littles, they won't sit, 40 minutes, let alone
Yeah.
2 minutes.
yes.
Yeah, you have to give them a puppet and crayons and markers and
Yeah.
blocks and say, tell me what you are experiencing.
Yeah, and they like kids and teens, like they process so fast. Like
do.
it's just like rapid, so it is like so fast. Like they're like, yeah, I'm a 5 out of 10, and then 10 minutes later they're like, I'm good, like this is fine.
I
like,
find
"Oh,
it
okay."
fascinating. I mentioned to you I have a 5-year-old, and truly this morning we're talking about turtles, and then we're into space, and then and then to different colors, and I want to go build this robot.
Yes.
Where is your brain? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I
Yeah.
cannot keep up. It is super
Yeah.
rapid fire.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're awesome.
So are you working then with children all the way through adults, or do you
Yeah.
specify on who? Okay.
I see 9 and up. 9 years old and up. So
Okay.
it gets, because I work a lot with athletes, I think before 9, unless you're like a gymnast or ballet, there's some sports that definitely age favors them, right? But I think when we start talking about like high competitiveness and things like that, we start to see like closer to 9, and then also just I don't do play therapy, and I don't that would be like my husband specializes more with kids, so he does better there than I do. But 9 and up, we start to be able to really kind of process. We're starting to get more competitive in our sports. We're starting to,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We're going to take another quick break. Please, for our listeners, stay tuned in. We're with Krista, the owner of Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. We will be right back. Welcome back. This is a special K4CO Radio Wednesday morning edition. We have been speaking with Krista, the owner of Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. Super fascinating. Thank you again for being with us. We really delved into kind of the different trauma counseling, sports counseling. I know you help out athletes and coaches kind of specifically ranging from really 9 years old and up. And brain spotting. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think, as you said, it's something a little bit newer, different from EMDR, which I think is, I believe, been around longer.
Yeah.
But brain spotting, I think, is so unique and valuable because a lot of times, as you mentioned, trauma is stored and we have no idea where.
Yeah.
I find, especially, of course, in a traumatic event, you disassociate, you forget, quote unquote. Our body remembers.
Yes.
What I actually find is I've had nightmares from a pretty young kiddo. And I actually can process some of my life stuff, whatever I experience. It can be something as little as, oh my goodness, I failed a test, or something happened, or a teacher said something that resonated with me, and it will come back in my like nightmare or dream.
Yeah.
Trauma is so fascinating to me, how it will kind of poke out and whether we're ready for it or not.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, and thank you for being that person that can be that safe area for people to kind of process through that, especially with high performance athletes. And again, I know that that's your focus, but with people in high performing jobs, such as a heart surgeon, for example, can those people also come to you?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. I don't advertise that as much, but I need to. But yeah, for sure. High performers can be athletes. It can be, like you said, heart surgeons. They could be CEOs, right? I think there's a drive that this kind of high performer population has. I'm always wondering, why do we have, the different Enneagrams or the different personality traits, what really develops those things. But yes, for sure, any kind of person that's really under like high pressure, high performer. I do have other clients too that, maybe they're not necessarily high performers. That's like we would call them as a society, but like they're, people like you, me, like we're just living life, and they just need a counselor to talk to and work through things, or, process some stuff. So I do have, clients like that as well. But yeah, definitely any kind of person in a high performing profession.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think we all need it.
Yeah.
It really, I see it with my young one, and it's the different pressures of life, and we all can process differently. It is sometimes, I think, very unique depending on, I find also that very interesting. You have 2 or 3 siblings from the same parents, and they are night and day different.
Yes,
with
for sure.
Personalities. How are you going to process this information? Where are you going to store it? How is it going to come out?
Yeah.
So it can be, I like that it's also very individualized, which is wonderful. Well, if you don't mind, tell our listeners where they can find you. If you have Facebook, website, how they can contact you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, they can. I do have a website, so it's just speakstonecc.com. Pretty easy to remember. And then we do have Instagram, Facebook pages, LinkedIn, or like Psychology Today. But yeah, those are probably the most easiest ways to look us up. Yeah.
Okay. If they wanted to call you, what is the best number for them to reach?
That's 720-213-8272.
Perfect. Okay. Well, wonderful. Anything else that you wanted to highlight or share that we skipped over that you wanted to delve a little more into?
I don't. I feel like we could just keep talking to you forever.
This is yes.
No,
I love it.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, of course.
So fun.
I love this. Keep us updated for sure. I know you maybe have some changes coming on. You might be adding to staff a little bit, which is
hopefully yes.
That is exciting. That's good news. You guys are starting to grow.
Yes.
And please keep us
accepting clients. Always accepting clients.
Good. No, that's great. You're going forward and going up. That is kind of my philosophy. Well, thank you, Krista, for being here. Truly, this is such a joy to have you on, and for really delving into, I think, brain spotting, which is so unique, so valuable. So thank you. Please keep us updated. We'd love to have you back again.
Awesome.
And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. Again, we were joined with Krista Juerling. She's the owner of Speakstone Counseling and Consulting. She is located here in Colorado in Centennial, and she specializes in all sorts of counseling, trauma counseling, sports counseling, mental performance, and very specifically brain spotting as well. So please reach out to her. And thank you again. We'll get you going with some awesome tunes here. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll talk to you soon.